Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living Victoria Online. My name is Carrie Hunter, and I'm the spiritual director of the center, and it's lovely to have you here with me today. As I'm recording this, of course, our Sunday service is already concluded, and we've been just drinking in a whole lot of new information since then. I'm going to share some of that with you today. I haven't been online the last couple of weeks, as a couple of people have noticed, and that's because a good friend and longtime member of our congregation was making her transition, and I was at the hospital almost every day for a few hours, just spending that time with her, and time just got away with me. So um, I'm talking about Phyllis Comrie, if you may have known her, and she made her transition on Saturday at roughly 6:30 p.m. and was completely unafraid and looking forward to this new journey that she was about to embark upon, and already feeling the touch of those who were waiting for her on the other side. And so we sent her away with our blessings and prayers and love, and I know that you will as well. So my topic on Sunday was the age of wisdom. And as I contemplated that and was wondering what on earth I was thinking about, I went back to the year 2000, the new millennium, and I was thinking about Y2K and all of the paranoia around it, that, Armageddon was about to happen and that the world was going to blow up because computers were not programmed to take in the last two digits of a new century. It would be 00, and they usually just deal with the two numbers. Anyway, it's a long story. I never really had any concern that that was going to happen, didn't really pay much attention to it, but it was in the news every day. And there were also spiritual authors, metaphysicians, who were suggesting that we were moving into the age of wisdom. And here, 22 years later, almost 23, I find myself wondering, were we really? Are we really? And then, of course, I remembered that things don't happen overnight. It takes time. And in my experience in the last few years, I haven't felt like I've seen a whole lot of wisdom out there. But, as the cliche goes, that everything unlike love has to come up to be healed before we can have this age of wisdom, this age of peace. And so I'm okay with that. And I spend a lot of time in prayer and meditation, visualizing just what that can look like. And so I was pondering the idea of wisdom, because there's so many people who think that wisdom comes with old age. And then, there are those who, don't appear to be very wise when they get to be quite elderly. But also there are little children who are filled with wisdom, who really remember the truth of who they are. And it just astonishes me these days how very special are this next generation of children that are being born. So wisdom, I don't think, really has to do much with age. It often has to do with experience, though, as we get older. As we have experienced a whole lot of things in life, we start to be determined that we're not going to make those mistakes again, or, we learn lessons from them, which gives us a certain degree of wisdom. And I was thinking about the difference between knowledge and wisdom and intuition. And I recall a few years ago reading a cute story, and basically it was something like this: that knowledge is when you know that you're going to take a trip through the desert. You're going to take a walking trip into the desert on a trail. And you know that it is 12.4 miles long. And so that's the knowledge that you have about it. And wisdom is to take enough water with you that you're going to have enough to supply you along the way. And intuition and insight is that you're smart enough to go ahead and set up a lemonade stand at mile 6 for others who are yet to come. And I always thought, that's a cute story, and there is wisdom in that, because from wisdom we get insight and intuition about things that we can do next that are going to be, practical, or are going to serve us to our highest and best. And so the question is, are we carrying water? Are we setting up a lemonade stand? Or are we dying of thirst in the desert? And that, of course, takes us to the whole idea of our spiritual awareness, of our consciousness. Are we thirsting for more knowledge? Are we thirsting for wisdom? Are we thirsting for spiritual upliftment and spiritual growth? And I was thinking about Rumi, and I'm probably paraphrasing this, but Rumi said something to the effect, "I have been a seeker, and I still am. But I've stopped asking the books and the stars, and I have started listening to the teachings of my soul." And I thought how wonderful that is, because, of course, Ernest Holmes, our founder, said that we all have the truth within. And the thing is that many of us don't really stop to listen to that. And that's where we kind of go astray. And I have a couple of quotes that I've written down here that I want to share today, with the understanding that better to read them to you than to paraphrase them, because as the saying goes, do you want me to say them worse? I think that these are quite profound. So I want to share with you something that neuroscientist Tara Stewart wrote, that wisdom allows us to recognize patterns and to make decisions upon intuition. It is more of a felt sense that something is right or wrong. Think about that. We have lots of knowledge, but when something isn't going just right, we feel it. If it isn't right, if it is wrong, we will sense it one way or the other. She said, as we grow in wisdom and experience, intuition can become far more powerful than logic alone. And so if this is the age of wisdom, it strikes me that we maybe still have a way to go before we get into that wonderful state. To be wise is to have deep insight and knowledge and good judgment. And it is often associated with age because it typically comes from experience, as I said earlier. But there are those little children who are so special, who know much more than that now. And so what we must hold close above all else is that we don't simply live in the universe, but the universe lives in us. Think about that. The universe lives in us. There is no separation. Otherwise, there would be duality, and we know there is no duality. There's only oneness. Everything that is God, spirit, the divine, love, Marianne, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter what you call God. It knows what it is. It responds to whatever we want to call it, because in our hearts we know. I mean, typically, try to describe God accurately to anyone. Pretty hard to do, because I don't think there are words to describe anything that is so magnificent and so enormous as God. But we do the best that we can with the understanding that we have. And so we have this power within us. We're born with it. That's what our soul is. That's what our spirit is. It is God. And we are individual expressions of God. Each one of us. We all, we look different. We act differently. We think differently. But we all have this God stuff within us, this power within us. And we can use it. And the thing is that it is that which connects us one to the other. There is no separation from that. There may be a physical separation that we think exists, although quantum physics now proves that that's not the case. But it's very interesting to consider this, and to really know that You know, whoever you are that part of God, and I am that part of God. We all are the same, and we physically express differently. So when we're holding that close and we tap into ideas, we begin to understand the energies that are different around us, the intuitive sense of what we have to do, where we want to go, or where we have to go at any given time. And it is often beyond logic. And when we immerse ourselves in it, we find we are divinely led as to what it is that we have to do next, or that what we should do next. You know, what is going to be for our highest and greatest good, and what is going to be for the highest and best for this planet on which we live. So this intuitive thing is something that we've all experienced. You know, it's that kind of thing where you think the phone is going to ring, and then it does. Or you're thinking about a friend, and that friend phones you immediately at that moment. You know, but we're linked in by our intuitive selves, by our intuitive natures. And there have been some wonderful teachers along the way who've talked about wisdom and about knowledge and so on. And one of the favorites of mine is Jean Houston, the wonderful anthropologist and amazing spiritual teacher, who is, I think she's now about 83 or 84, and she's still going strong. She's absolutely magnificent. She grew up basically, well, in her very early years. Her father worked for MGM in the United States, and he was a screenwriter, and he also wrote. If any of you have watched Abbott and Costello, you know, who's on first and what's on second, and so on, that hilarious thing. Sam Houston wrote that, and Sam Houston was Jean's father. So she had this wonderful world of imagination as she was a child. And, you know, she said she could be on set of a circus, and there would be elephants, and there would be the bearded woman, and the man with, who weighed 400 pounds or whatever. And they'd be in between takes, they'd be sitting playing poker. And she was able to just wander around all these very interesting people. And she saw so many things on that set. And so her imagination was always just on fire with everything she saw. And she's really used that imagination and wisdom. And I would say that she's truly one of the wisest people on the planet. She's considered to be the most traveled person on the planet. She has been an advisor to every American president. I don't know about Donald Trump. I don't mean to be political here, but I'm not so sure that she advised him, but she was an advisor to all other presidents during her lifetime and to prime ministers around the world. And she has visited so many countries and done so much amazing work with women and children in developing countries. She has taught thousands and thousands of people in tribal societies how to learn kinesthetically instead of the way that we have learned, sitting at desks, reading, listening to a teacher. She knows that in tribal societies, those people have to move. They have to move their bodies to be able to learn. And she has carried all of this into the work that she's done. She's remarkable. And one of the things she said, and I'm quoting here, is, "This is the most critical time in human history. I realize that other times in history feel they were it. They're wrong. This is it. This is truly, truly the time of growth, or it's the time that we die. It's the time that we evolve, or the time that we perish." Strong words. It's often beyond logic, but this is the time that we regrow ourselves, repattern, rewire, if we're going to be stewards of this extraordinary time. Too many of us, from world leaders to a nearby neighbor, have been educated for another time and place, another way of being, and are not understanding the importance of their roles at this time. And she says, take a look at political systems and just see how they are playing out. Jean says, we are a fraction of our human capacities. She studied with people like Margaret Mead and Joseph Campbell and Jonas Salk and Buckminster Fuller. And the common thread was that they were fascinated by their own minds. They were the archaeologists of their own minds. They dug deeply into their own minds. Imagine being fascinated by your own mind. And I think that's really possible when we let go of all the knowledge. It's all stored in our bodies. It's all stored in our brains. It's stored in our hearts. Our hearts apparently have greater memory than our brains. There are books that have been written about this that are remarkable. And so when we think about just delving into the knowledge that we have, delving into our minds, delving into our brains, and our thoughts, what is it that we come up with? What is it that we're really thinking about ourselves? It's about our imagination more than anything else. The thing is that we need to remember who we are. And you hear me often say this. We need to remember that we are spirit having a human experience, that we do have all of this power within us. And we need to remember the power of our imagination, because it is so much greater than words. And of course, we are taught to pray in words. We're taught to perhaps meditate in words, or else to meditate just in silence. And I'm fond of saying, in the silence, there are many answers. I love that. But it's our imaginations that can take us to other places so quickly. If there's something we want to create in our lives, we could write things down, we could be doing affirmations, we could be speaking, for days and days and days, weeks and weeks and weeks, months, even years, and just perhaps see gradual increase in things. But when we have the picture in our minds, when our imagination can see the image of what it is that we want to create, that seed is planted. It is planted in the invisible, and it immediately starts to grow. And so, as Ernest Holmes says, we have to create that image. We have to have that mental image of what it is that we want in our lives, and then we hold on to it. And we don't look around us in a couple of days and say, well, it isn't here yet. Everything is in divine timing. There are things that happen. Let's say that there's a special job that you would like. Maybe you'd like to be on television and be a news announcer. And you know where you live. You know which station you want to be on. You know the kind of work you want to do. And so you have this image in your mind. Well, chances are pretty good there's somebody else there. And what we don't do is wish that person would go away. We don't direct those thoughts. That creates a karmic thing that will come back to haunt us. But what we do is we keep seeing ourselves in that position. And one day something happens where that person decides to move on, perhaps to a greater job somewhere else. And the job is opened up for us to go and seek. And we get the job because we've been holding that in our minds, in our imaginations. Or it might be that you want to be an actor, or maybe, maybe it's something that you want in life. Maybe you want a new car. Maybe you want a new house. Maybe you want a bicycle, an electric bike. You hold that in your mind. And I'm fond of saying, the seed is planted, you nurture it by focusing upon it, by holding it in your imagination, by knowing that it is growing. It's been captured there, and it is being nurtured every day. But what you don't do is then deny it. Say, well, it hasn't happened yet. It's never going to happen. We just don't do that. It's kind of like, I'm fond of saying, you've planted a carrot seed. and there's a little tiny bit of growth above the soil. You see that green fern above the soil, and you decide you're going to pull it out and see if the carrot has started to grow yet. And there might only be roots there, or there might be the beginning of the carrot, but it's not going to grow again if you put it back in the soil. And so it's the same with us. It's, we don't doubt. You just know, absolutely know beyond anything else that, as Wayne Dyer used to say, believe it and you will see it. He wrote a book by that title. And it is so true. Just see it in your mind, believe it, and then just let go and let God. As in this teaching, what we say is, we don't need to know how to do it. We just need to know what it is. And so when we know what, we leave the how up to God. And then we're opening up the space for miracles to occur. It's a phenomenal thing. And it is wisdom that takes us there, that knows exactly what to do and what not to do during that time, and knows to hold on to that beautiful belief, to the magic of awareness, and of how everything is possible. I love that. There are people who have belief systems that don't serve them. I hear people say, well, I have 5 siblings and they all died of heart attacks, or they all have had open heart surgery. It must be my turn next. And I think, no, it isn't. It doesn't have to be. You just have to think about it in a different way. You have to know that you're healthy and strong, and that your heart is strong, and that, that's not what you're ordering up in your life. As Bruce Lipton and a number of other scientists and metaphysicians have said, we can change our genomes. We don't have to carry on the genetics of our siblings or of our parents. By seeing our image, an image of ourselves as being healthy and strong and thriving, we're creating that in our genetic makeup. And it is happening for us. We don't have to buy into any of that stuff. Lots of wisdom in that. And of course, as we're studying quantum physics now, we know how all of this works. That when we look for the quantum field, we will see either waves or particles depending upon what we think we're going to see. And we can be looking through a gigantic microscope, and if we think it's going to be a particle, we'll see the particle. If we think it's a wave, it's going to be a wave. And that's where everything comes from. It comes from out of the invisible into a particle or a wave, and then grows from there. Everything. We are all just energy moving. The chair you're sitting in right now is energy that is moving, but it happens to be vibrating to a density that it will hold you. You can see it. You can sit in it. It's not going to collapse, hopefully, because of the vibration. And of course, our thoughts are vibrating at a much higher level than the chair is. Our wisdom is. Our imagination is. And the higher the vibration, the greater is going to be the manifestation. So, if we know this is the age of wisdom, we can, or if we want it to be, then we start believing that it is the age of wisdom. And then we start asking ourselves, well, if it is, then what can I do about it? How can I volunteer somewhere? What can I do to make a difference? Mother Teresa said, it's easier for us to buy a cup of rice for someone thousands of miles away than it is to help a neighbor or to be loving and forgiving in our own families and with our friends. We really have to examine this, and we have to look upon the things that we need to clear up in our own lives now, so that we can just live in joy and happiness and in love. You know, we really need to look to love. We need to see a horizon bigger than the day's headlines. We can get so caught up in things that in the final analysis are not that important. It takes faith to play big. And do we want to play small? I don't think so. You know, we want love, not fear in our lives. It takes a lot of love to overcome fear, but it is possible. This is what ours to do, and maybe that's where we start. And when we do, we make the world a better place. And when we do, we are cultivating that wisdom. I want to close with reading something by Hafiz, one of my favorite poets. He says, "The beloved has gone completely wild. He has poured himself into me. I am blissful and drunk and overflowing. Dear world, draw life from my sweet body. Dear wayfaring souls, come drink. Drink your fill of liquid rubies, for God has made my heart." Don't you love that? God has made my heart. God has made your heart. Remember this, and together we help to create this age of wisdom, which is an age of peace, an age of compassion, an age of love for all humanity. Together it is possible for us, each one of us, together, collectively, to transform the world. And so it is. Have a wonderful week. It's great to see you. And if you ever want to drop in to see us in person, we are at 380 Cook Street. That's in the Cook Street Village Activity Center in downtown Victoria. And we'd love to see you there. We're there for meditation at 10:30 on Sunday mornings, and our celebration service begins at 11 a.m. It's a wonderful, welcoming, loving place to be. And if you'd like to pop in, we would just love to see you there, love to welcome you, and get to know you. So blessings, have a wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye for now.